One of the questions I see get asked a lot about the KLR 650 is, does it make for a good commuter bike? Can you commute back and forth to work on a regular basis with the KLR? Well, to that I say, where there's a will, there's a way. So let's take a look at a KLR 650 commuter variant today. So the price of gas is ridiculous. Let's be honest right now. And the temptation to have a motorcycle be a daily commuter is really high with a lot of people. I know, like I mentioned, that question has been coming up a lot online lately. Would a KLR 650 be a good commuter bike? I know one Island rider in the comments asked me, is like, what do you think about the KLR as a commuter? And for me, I'll tell you, like, I do it. I commute on a daily basis in the ride season, of course, on my KLR 650, the Silver Fox. And I think it's fine. I like it. But the bike is pretty good. I mean, really any bike is going to be good as a commuter bike, really, when you think about it. There's not a lot that you need to do to a machine like this to make it something that you can take to work back and forth every day, because there's not a lot going on between that. But there are some things that I have done that make it a little bit easier for myself. And I think one of the biggest things, one of the more underrated things really, as far as making a bike a good commuter bike, is kind of making yourself, ready to be a commuter on a bike. And I'll get into a little bit about what I mean by that here in a little bit. But there's three things I want to take a look at. I want to show you the things that I do to my bike to make it a little bit better, bike build kind of thing. We're going to take a little look at gear, and then we're going to take a look at routine, because that's the underrated thing. You as a rider in routine really makes and completes the commuter build for the bike. All right, so let's get into it. Let's take a look at things about the bike here a little bit that I want to show you. All right, so let's take a look at some of the things that I do to the KLR 650 to kind of make it a little bit better. And I'll preface this with saying there isn't any major build up that I do to this bike. Like I mentioned before, it's the commuting. There's just some things that you can do, but really for me, it comes down to just like my own routine. So a couple of cool things. Quick, small thing. I actually just keep a watch right here. I know this is super basic, right? But like that lets me know if I'm going to be late. Plus there's no there's no actual like clock on the KLR 650. So I just strap an old wristwatch down there, water resistant, and away you go. Another cool thing that I really like is this dash riser. Actually, I find this is really good at keeping spray from other cars off of you a little bit. I was actually riding out in the rain a bit today, and I noticed it. I remembered a lot of it. This kept the spray off quite a bit, and I really like that. So that's a Chrono Parts dash riser. It's adjustable. You can bring it up, you can bring it down, and you can see it also comes with this cool dash, so you can put a couple little instruments. And this is a really cool thing too. This is like, born out of my ADV variant, but still, I mean, like being able to charge your phone on the ride, also excellent. Another really cool thing that I really like about the KLR, and it's my commuter build, if you will, is just one of these little netting things. Now this goes a long way actually, as far as, being a good little commuter is concerned, because if you don't really want to take a lot of luggage, you can just grab one of these guys off Amazon. And then when you're going to get do your errands and stuff, you just throw stuff under it. I've carried cases of beer on that all the time. And maybe I'll throw my bag from work underneath this as well if I don't want to wear the bag. I usually have a backpack or some equivalent of that. I'll throw it into this and I'll go for a ride. And it's really nice too. I think this is an underrated one here a little bit. So the other thing that I like to do is, as far as luggage is concerned, is I like having a top bag, actually. All right, let's take a look at this bad boy. So I love this KLR 650 top bag. I got this with the bike. Shane from Bolger Motorsports, threw in all of the luggage for this KLR when I bought it. And man, I still can't thank him enough for that, because this is such a really good bag. I love it as like an excellent little commuter luggage option. I mean, it's the equivalent of a soft milk crate when you think about it. But I've been using this thing forever for moto camping and for just commuting in general, because I find it's a nice soft luggage option to hold a lot of weird stuff that you're going to end up encountering. So here, let me show you what I mean about it. Say I'm running in, grabbing something for the weekend. I don't want to take my helmet into the store. I don't want it hanging off my bike because I'm worried someone might pick it up. Well, there you go. Just chills right out in there. Also, if I just want to take my regular work bag, this is legit my work bag that I take to work on a regular basis. And it goes. I still got room. And I mean, it kind of looks a little goofy on the back like that. And you know what? I'm not saying go out and buy this like top bag or anything, but for me, I find that the fact that it has that expanding element to it and that it is a little bit of a softer bag so you can fit some kind of funky shaped stuff in here, I think that's really good. It's not waterproof. So if you did want to put anything that's that you want to be water resistant or waterproof, you'd have to bag it up. But I've got a solution for that a little bit later. I'll show you what I mean. But this is a really cool thing. So if you're thinking about adding some luggage to your bike, you know, maybe you don't want saddlebags. Maybe you don't want something a little bit bigger, or the top bag is really good because it's so easy to get in and out of, right? Like it's just right there. So that's my luggage. And essentially that's most of the build of the bike. All right, let's talk a little bit about some of the more mechanical things about this build, because there are some serious considerations to make and there are some serious decisions that you need to make once you start thinking about using your bike less as an off-road machine and more of a grocery get me to work machine. So first thing, sprockets and gearing. Now for myself, I love the stock layout, and that's not just me talking out of laziness. I find it is the best of the both worlds. And what are the two worlds? A 14 tooth front sprocket and a 16 tooth front sprocket. Now those two sprockets will do completely different things for you. A 14 tooth is going to be a powerhouse in the trails. It's going to tractor you up and down through those trails, and it's going to be perfect for you if you want to get into the mud and you want to be in the woods and heavy dual sport work. A 15 tooth sprocket sits right in the middle, but the 16 tooth sprocket, that's your friend for the freeway. If you're going to be on the highway and you're going to be doing a lot of high revs and you're going to be going probably around 100 kilometers an hour on a regular basis, then you're going to want to look into something with a little bit more teeth. So 16 tooth sprocket is going to be probably something you want to consider. For me, again, I like the 15. But like I said, if you think you're going to be commuting like half an hour, 45 minutes one way, and it's going to be a lot of highway, maybe think about it. If there's one thing the KLR 650 community likes to talk about, it's tires. And everybody seems to have their own opinion about it. So my theory is, I want to have the tire that's going to work for me off-road, regardless of how much off-road I do. So maybe, I ride the bike over the span of 2 weeks, and about 25% of that, maybe even less, is off-road. Well, I still want that off-road tire because I want to know that if I get into the mud or if I get into some wild terrain, I still got the bite. I still got the lugs to get me out of it, right? But the trade-off with that is usually those off-road tires have a bit of a softer compound, so they're going to wear away a lot quicker. So if I'm going to use my bike as a commuter and I'm going to be on the highway and I'm going to be on asphalt a lot of times, that off-road tire is going to get burned up real quick. And then I'll be end up into buying tires pretty much every season. And after a while, the savings that you get in gas are going to start going right into the tires, and it's not going to be worth it. So what do we look for in tires? Again, it's a decision that you're going to have to make. One of the recommendations that I'll give you is the Shinko 705. Now, I'm using the Shinko 805, and I have an 804 up front. But the 700 series of Shinko is a really, really nice tire because it doesn't have as an aggressive tire pattern, but it is a little bit of a harder compound, so you get more mileage, more kilometers out of that tire. But you still get a really good tire that'll take you places off-road. Not into the craziest, deepest mud or ATV trails. You might be able to get it through there, who knows? The creativity and the resilience of the KLR 650 community will definitely prove somebody wrong in that regard. But still, you have a good tire that'll take you on some gravel and some fire roads, but you have a tire that's not going to burn up on you every single season, and you're not going to be dumping a lot of money into it. So if I had to recommend a tire build for a commuter KLR 650, Shinko 705. Now, as I mentioned, people love to talk about tires. So please, if you have a better recommendation, put it in the comments. If you have a better idea as far as what a tire should look like on a KLR 650 commuter, please let me know. Man, the comment sections of these videos, that's where we hone in and get our really cool ideas going. So please let me know about that. But yeah, I'm gonna keep my Shinkos. I love them. I think they're great all around tire and they get me through a lot of what I need to get through. But let's take a look at a little bit more gear side of stuff, because I got some cool things to gear I want to talk to you about. This is the coolest backpack I own. I own a lot of backpacks actually. I have a rucksack for Work 2.0. I have a North Face backpack that I use for hiking. I have a backpack that I use for going to work, but this one I find is just so cool. So what this is a rig bag, like think oil rigs. And you can buy it off the Kawasaki website for all places. And thank you so much to my wonderful wife, Mrs. Dowski, who got me this for Christmas, because man, oh man, is it ever some cool. Number one, look at this. It's a dry bag. Roll it up, clip it up, and there you go. You have a waterproof backpack. Very awesome. Check this out. This is also a cool thing. Look at that. The bloody thing is a flotation device now. Look at this. Isn't that neat? That's so cool. But here, this is the coolest part I like about it. It has a lot of cool pouches, but here, let me get my regular bag. If you're like me, you have a storage system already in place for work. This is my laptop bag. I usually run this. You can see it's pretty ratty. But I get a lot of stuff in here, and I don't like to take it apart. So check this out. There we go, eh? This is actually quite comfortable on the bike too. And I've had this out hiking a little bit earlier in this off season. But I really, really like this little rig bag. It's just like I don't know how to describe it, but I just find it's really neat. So if you're looking for a motorcycle backpack, check this one out. So your bike is on the road a lot more. If you're going back and forth to and from work every day, one of the things that you want to start adopting is a really good routine. So what does that mean? That means doing way more inspection work and keeping way better line of sight on what your bike is doing and how it's operating. The odds are now against you a little bit. The bike is being used way more, and it's being put into these like traffic scenarios way more too. So the thing that you can do to combat that a little bit and kind of boost your chances of identifying a problem with the bike way earlier is by developing a really good pre-ride inspection and maybe even doing a bi-weekly inspection. Now, I've got a bi-weekly inspection that I do, and I'll link it above here just so you can get an idea. These are the things that I look at a lot because I find that when I'm commuting on the bike a lot, I just want to know if these things are working well. But here's what I do as far as a pre-ride inspection is concerned. Now, I do this every morning before I go to work, and I'll do it before I leave work. First things first, I'm going to check out the tires. What I'm looking for in the tires, any damage to the sidewalls, and I'm looking for inflation. Now, you don't have to get a tire pressure instrument out onto this. What you can do is you can just squeeze the sidewall like that. If you find that if you can squeeze this in really easy, then you should go find some air real quick. You'll know right away if there's a problem here. This should be pretty tight. Next, just have a quick look at the wheels overall. And you can do this just by walking around the bike. You don't have to go crazy and you don't have to jack the bike up or anything. Just have a look. Just put your eyes on the bike. Now, one of the things that can happen when you're commuting a lot and day in and day out is you become zombified a little bit. You wake up in the morning, you brew your coffee, you get dressed, you get showered, you get outside, you turn the bike on, you ride away. If you're not looking at your bike a lot, you're going to miss stuff. And the time that you find that stuff is going to be the time when you're on the side of the road. So after taking a good walk around the bike, I check my oil out, tip it up, and I look to make sure that it's underneath that line a little bit. It's a little bit hard to see there. So once I get the oil checked, the next thing I usually do is I check the chain slack. So I'll just come over to the chain here, and I'll just put my finger in, and I'll just bring it up. And what I'm looking for here, for me at least, as far as the way I like to have my chain at, and the chain specifications is between 35 and 45 millimeters of chain slack. But I'm looking when I put my finger up here just below this bolt, is that I just make a little bit of contact with this rubber runner here. After that, it's electrical checks. Power the bike on and make sure all your electrical stuff's working. Check out the signal lights. check out the brake. And the way I do this is I just use the front brake first, and I'll stick my hand behind it here, and I'll look for the light up. And I'll do the same with the rear brake. I'll just put my hand on it, put my hand over here, and just look for it to light up. Then I check the high beam, and maybe I'll give my trail lights a look. And since I have an electrical distribution system, I'll check that the distribution master power works for me. That's just me though. You can test the horn too if you want, but that might annoy people after a while, but who cares, right? It's nice to know it works. And finally, I start to check the suspension. Kick the bike off, sink into it a little bit, roll it forward, apply the brakes heavy, and make sure it doesn't collapse or bottom out. And in doing so, I'm also checking the front brake, making sure I've got a good steady stop, front and back. After that, off we go to work. So those are my tips from one commuter to potentially another about maybe making the KLR 650 into a commuter machine. I mean, it definitely has the potential. I feel like really any motorcycle is going to be able to do it for you. If you want to be a commuter on a motorcycle, I think that some of the tips that we've gone over here might help you out, or at least inspire you to make some sort of commuter machine out of whatever you're riding right now. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm a KLR 650 fanboy. So if you ask me if the KLR is good for anything, I'm going to pretty much tell you it is. But there is some honesty in there too. One thing I really want to stress though, like I mentioned before, is that being a good commuter on a KLR 650 not only requires a motorcycle, having a few knickknacks and cool things that are going to help you out, but two, it's going to come from commitment from yourself. If you want to commute on a motorcycle, you have to be ready to ride in the rain. If you want to commute, you have to make sure that you don't become a zombie. Because think about it, in the morning, you know, it's like early on and you got all these cars surrounding you and there's a lot of zombies behind the wheel out there who don't really pay attention to a lot of what's going on. And you're gonna have to ride around some of those guys, and you're gonna have to prevent yourself from becoming one of those too. So think about some things that might be able to wake you up in the morning. You know, maybe wake up a little bit earlier, have a coffee, give that a little jolt before you head out onto the road. If you got a comm system that has Bluetooth, sync it up to your phone, maybe listen to a podcast or some really cool music in the morning. That, for me, would, you know, fires me up. I should do that more often, actually. Anyway, like I said, I hope some of these tips, I hope some of these ideas have inspired you to make something a bit more of a commuter variant of whatever you're riding, whether it's a KLR 650 or if it's a Gixxer. Anyway, if you'd like to see this bike in action, I strongly recommend that you subscribe to the channel. We have new motorcycle adventures every Monday. And you know what? It's almost time to fire those adventures up again. We're in spring. I actually had the bike out today. So it's time to start going on some new adventures. But if you want to join along for those, I'd be glad to have you along. And if you're riding out there, please ride safe. And if you're waiting for your ride season to start, well, you know what? It's so close right now, Island Riders. And until we get into that ride season, until we get back out there, whether we're commuting or we're out in the woods on an adventure, take care, Island Riders.